Our News is brought to you by Alive.
Tonight on Our News, Philip Davis privately sworn in as PM. Reactions to the F&M's stunning defeat. Officials confirm an additional 22 COVID deaths. And who reopened Munnings Road last night? Welcome to Our News and thanks for joining us. I'm Christina Dragovich. Topping news tonight, Philip Brave Davis was sworn in as the country's 5th Prime Minister during a private ceremony this afternoon at the office of the Governor General at 1 Montague Place. The media learned of the swearing in after the fact. Davis arrived on New Providence this morning after celebrating the Progressive Liberal Party's decisive win on Cat Island last night. Thanking the Bahamian people for ushering in a new day, Davis says he's anxious to get to work. Jared Higgs tells us more.
Prime Minister-elect Philip Brave Davis arrived on New Providence on Friday morning after celebrating his historic win on Thursday. As he thanked the Bahamian people for ushering in a new day, Davis said he's anxious to get to work.
First of all, I'm grateful to them for speaking so loudly that a new day is really necessary in this country, and a new day they have. So it's now time for me just to get to work on this new day.
Davis spoke to the media shortly after his arrival. He was greeted by scores of supporters and PLP members. The PLP leader, who had run a campaign promising to effectively tackle the COVID-19 pandemic and grow the economy, said he's looking to finalize his cabinet selections today.
Well, we are working on those issues right now, my transition team. We are going to be working all day today to settle on those matters, determining what portfolios will go in which ministries, and deciding how many ministries, how large my cabinet will be, and then determining who will fit those slots.
The new administration will face tough challenges. The Bahamas is grappling with its worst surge of COVID-19 cases, deaths, and hospitalizations, and faces a fragile economic situation triggered by the COVID-19 pandemic and Hurricane Dorian, which brutalized Abaco and Grand Bahama, the second and third largest economies in the Bahamas. In the lead up to the election, Davis promised to cut value-added tax, which was implemented by the previous PLP administration in 2015 to 10% after the Minnis administration raised it from the original 7.5% to 12% in 2018. In yesterday's elections, the PLP won more than 30 of 39 seats. Several recounts were ongoing today to determine the winners in seats that were too close to call. Among the PLP wins were all 7 of the party's female candidates.
For the first time, we've had 7 women elected to Parliament, and the 7 of them were PLPs. I'm so grateful to them. As I said, we'll be working on those specifics right now, the generalities, and I'll be head on.
Reporting for Our News, I am Jared Higgs.
According to Bahamas Information Services, Davis will receive his instruments of appointment from the Governor General during a public event tomorrow. Officials say the new Deputy Prime Minister may also be sworn in tomorrow. Well, in one of his first acts as Prime Minister, Davis amended the Emergency Powers Order, shortening the nightly curfew on Andros, Abaco, Bimini, Cat Island, Eleuthera, Grand Bahama, and New Providence to 11:59 p.m. to 5 a.m. This change takes effect today. It is the first emergency order bearing Davis's signature. Meanwhile, following the Free National Movement's crushing defeat at the polls, one former MP insists the party must rebuild and rise from the ashes. Voters overwhelmingly rejected the Minnis administration. However, F&M leader Dr. Hubert Minnis says he will stay on as party leader. Jasmine Brown reports.
The scene outside the Free National Movement headquarters today was much like it was last night, empty as former Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis conceded the race early on into the night.
There was jubilation, dancing, and celebrations by F&M supporters in the hours before polls closed on Election Day, as former Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis was cheered on by supporters moments after casting his vote. And Dr. Minnis was confident.
I have no doubt
the event.
However, voters foiled his plans to retain his PM post, and by 9 p.m. on election night, he conceded the 2021 general election to the Progressive Liberal Party. The outgoing PM opted not to go before the cameras, but released a 2-page statement that lauded his government's 4 years in office and offered PLP leader Philip Davis his best wishes and congratulations. The statement read, "I would like to thank the tens of thousands of Bahamians from across the Bahamas who voted for F&M candidates. I also congratulate F&M candidates who won seats in the House of Assembly. I am in that number, and again my gratitude goes out to the people of Killarney for making me their representative for the 4th consecutive time. I will lead the F&M into the House of Assembly as leader of Her Majesty's loyal opposition." Incumbents and former cabinet ministers like former DPM Desmond Bannister, former Education Minister Jeff Lloyd, former Health Minister Renward Wells, former National Security Minister Marvin Dames, and former Tourism Minister Dionisio de Aguilar were unable to retain their seats. Also losing his seat was former Elizabeth MP Dr. Dwayne Sands.
There are a lot of people who are disappointed, that are shocked, somewhat jubilant. What is true is that what separates us as political opponents is far less than what brings us together as Bahamians. And so today, even though I am disappointed, I am not distressed.
Sands says after the crushing defeat, the F&M must rebuild itself.
I look forward to playing a role in that emergence, that we arise from the ashes stronger, better, but more committed to the values that define the Free National Movement. And certainly I believe that we have drifted away from some of those values.
Reporting for our news, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Over on Grand Bahama, the F&M was left with 3 of 5 seats in Parliament. Following its defeat, one of the party's successful candidates says it's time to rebuild. Kyle Joaquin has the story.
And so it's time to rebuild. It's time for us to come together. And it's time for us again to focus on fighting and advocating for the people.
With the election not going quite how he had hoped, newly elected East Grand Bahama MP Kwesi Thompson says the F&M now pivots to becoming a strong opposition. After getting a clean sweep of Grand Bahama in 2017 with all 5 seats, the F&M held on to 3. East Grand Bahama, Central Grand Bahama with Iram Lewis, and Marco City with Michael Pintard, who is the first MP for the area to be re-elected in 20 years.
A lot of people just did not come out to vote. And I believe that there were a number of reasons why people did not come out to vote. And I think that was the determining factor that really caused the Free National Movement to lose the number of seats that we lost.
The PLP's Ginger Moxie managed to snatch a win from Pine Ridge MP Frederick McAlpine, beating him by just over 200 votes. At the party's headquarters on Grand Bahama last night, a celebration. This just behind me is what was supposed to be Holmes Rock Junior High School. It was a project started under the last PLP government, but wasn't completed under the Minnis administration. And now newly elected MP for West Grand Bahama and Bimini, Obi Wilscombe, says this is one project he would like to see done.
In West Grand Bahama in particular, I wanted to complete the high school, the junior school here in Holmes Rock, because it would have been the first school to be built at that level since 1967. And the problem is there's so many young people in the Western District who have to travel to Freeport daily to attend school. I think it's unfair. I think it's wrong.
The political veteran taking time to reflect and learn a bit from his previous mistakes.
Being a minister of the government, you can be excessively busy. And oftentimes you believe that the project represents the work you're doing and people should be satisfied with that. But you lose the contact. You're not there. You're not in your constituency. You're not hearing their cries every day. You're not seeing their problems every day. You're not going into their homes and talking to them. And you're not where you're supposed to be. And so I think I erred in that tremendously.
While not giving numbers, Assistant Parliamentary Commissioner Denise Pinder says voter turnout on the island was very low. From Grand Bahama for Our News, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
And it was a race to the finish line in several constituencies as low voter turnout meant triple digits separated some candidates. With a breakdown of the numbers, here's Jillian Gray.
Christina, up to 5 p.m. Friday, ballots were still being counted in some constituencies where a few races were tight. Over St. Barnabas, the incumbent Shannon Cartwright was able to edge out political veteran Michael Halkitis, but not by much. Fewer than 100 votes separated them. When we go over to Mount Moriah, you will see that it was also a race to the finish, as in each polling station in that constituency, the results were neck and neck between former National Security Minister Marvin Dames and political newcomer Mikkel Bonnaby, who won by just over 200 votes. That constituency was one of many with low voter turnout. There are 5,345 voters in Mount Moriah, but when the ballots were tallied, just over 2,500 were counted. That may have been what made East Grand Bahama's race so close as well. Of the 6,561 voters, only half showed up to the polls. Kwesi Thompson edged out the PLP's James Turner by nearly 400 votes. Just for a comparison, in 2017, the FNM's candidate won after receiving 3,675 votes. This time around, the total number of voters was barely 4,000. But perhaps the most shocking one in Grand Bahama was in the Pine Ridge constituency. The six-way race had a clear leader from the beginning. Incumbent Frederick McAlpine gave both Ginger Moxie as well as the FNM's Wellborn Boodle a run for their money. While McAlpine received the most votes of any independent candidate of the election, it was Moxie who would emerge victorious, beating McAlpine by 254 votes. Back to you, Christina.
Thanks, Jillian. Shifting gears now, the Ministry of Health reporting 22 more COVID-19 related deaths, with deaths now surpassing 500. Officials reported 13 deaths yesterday. While former Health Minister Dr. Dwayne Sand says the Bahamas should prepare for a surge in COVID-19 cases following a month of campaigning and other political activities.
I think that we have taken some liberties, and Jasmine, I think that unfortunately many more people will die. Many more people will be hospitalized. And so we have to prepare for the surge.
Despite the Bahamas' worsening situation, political parties continued to host events in the weeks ahead of the general election.
It is unfortunate, but it is what it is. And I think the frontline workers who have worked tirelessly for so long should prepare themselves for even more work.
Partly sunny skies today. Greg Thompson is in the Weather Center with the latest.
Thanks, Christina. Welcome everybody for your TGIF look at weather. Of course, after an eventful evening, temperatures managed to get up into the 90s. We are in the mid-80s right now. Passing clouds, humid conditions. Your winds are light and variable at 3 knots, and your feels like temperature in the mid to upper 80s. Satellite view, quiet around the islands today. That high pressure ridge remains in charge, but it is rather weak, so we had some very light winds across the islands today. A couple isolated showers and thunderstorms popping up, but things will quiet down as the evening goes on. That's your first look at weather. Your extended forecast is still to come.
Still to come on our news, Munnings Road reopened without government authorization, and just how low was voter turnout? Stay tuned.
Welcome to our news, and thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight.
COVID-19 remains a serious threat.
Coronavirus COVID-19 has disrupted our economy, tourism industry, educational system, and put our healthcare facilities and professionals on high alert. Are you prepared? Do you have all the facts? Stay tuned to this network for the very latest news and information on this global pandemic.
Three years after its controversial closure, boulders and barricades blocking Munnings Road were removed last night. But who authorized the move? Bethany McDermott sought to find out.
Following the news that the Progressive Liberal Party delivered a crushing defeat to the FNM, this happened.
Right here, road opening up, boy. We're going through now. Right away, road opening up. It's a new day, boy. Road opening up. New day.
The video, which was widely circulated on social media, shows a tractor removing the boulders that blocked Munnings Road overnight.
It feels very free. It feels like a new day.
You know, because in the old days the road was closed, so it's a new day.
It's a new day.
Open.
It's a new day.
We love it. We love it. It costs
too much traffic.
Traffic, and it cost the innocent young lady's life. The road shouldn't have been blocked up, man.
In May 2018, that portion of Munnings Road was closed and transformed into a cul-de-sac, a decision many in the area opposed.
By the angle of you, son. This will make it way easier than everybody jam up on Gladstone Road. To go down the way to haul up, when you come to here, and everybody just come to here, half that way, half this way. Just make it way easier for people.
That was a dumb decision, because guess what? Ain't no roads about to be blocked up in this community. We're experiments. We live in the Bahamas. Why you blocking up a road from another road with draining each road? That don't make no sense.
Yeah, that was an unwise decision. That decision didn't make no sense to close the road from the beginning. That was a selfish decision they made.
Now, since we arrived here at Munnings Road, this has been the scene. Cars moving up and down the road with residents saying they just wanted to see if the rumors were true. But who gave the nod for the boulders to be removed? Shortly after we arrived today, officials from the Ministry of Works showed up to examine the damage and said it wasn't authorized by the ministry. One official who declined an on-camera interview said they're now looking to widen the road and smooth things out to make it easier for drivers until the new government decides if it will keep it open or close it again. Police Press Liaison Officer ASP Audley Peters said the action is destruction of government property. However, he could not confirm if an official report was made by the ministry. Former Tall Pines MP Leslie Miller quickly shot down suggestions that he had something to do with it, but he congratulated the man in the video.
I was surprised like everybody else when I saw this video with this gentleman with a Jamaican accent talking about the road. Nothing at all. Zero, zip. But if I had authority, it would not have been closed. But it was, so I don't know. The fellow, whoever did it, had a lot of guts and decided just to do it. So I congratulate him.
Regardless of who did it, this motorist says the overnight change will save him a lot on gas.
Do you think you'll be using this road more often?
Oh, every day. Every day. What?
Reporting for Our News, I'm Berthany McDermott.
The PLP made history last night for more than one reason. All 7 of the women representing the party will head to Parliament. Their victories are being celebrated as a critical step for the advancement of women in frontline politics. Jared Higgs has more.
Veteran politician Glenys Hannah Martin won in Engliston. Newcomers Leslie Bryce in Seabreeze, Patricia DeVoe in Bamboo Town, Ginger Moxie in Pine Ridge, Lisa Ramming in Marathon, Pia Glover Roll in Golden Gates, and former Senator Jobeth Kobe Davis in Elizabeth. Several of the victorious female candidates reflected on the significance of their collective victories.
I think that is a testament to the fact that it is a new day, the door is open for females, and now we have to run through it and do our very best to ensure that the women's trial continues.
It's an exciting time for women. It was only 7 of us amongst the masses. We've all won our seats. And I think from what I'm hearing, we all did it handsomely. So tomorrow begins the first day of the rest of our journey called politics. So I'm hoping that the leader puts us in places where we can really serve and best serve this country as we move this country forward.
Women will now account for 17% of the seats in the lower house. Before the House's most recent dissolution, women held 13% of the seats.
I'm so excited. I know that women speak truth to power, and I'm excited for each one of them. I can't wait to see them, you know. Not that we had any doubt, but we're like, oh my God, the country is actually now accepting and viewing that women can now hold positions that men usually hold, and to trust us to do the right thing. We're so grateful, and I want to say thank you on behalf of my colleagues who are not here tonight. We are so grateful that you trust us, and we will not let you down.
We are 7 phenomenal women, and we are ready to get to work. As it relates to cabinet and any post that's going to be decided, that's up to our leader, and he is going to make the right decisions just as he has made the right decisions to get us where we are today. So we're leaning on him and we're depending on him. The right decisions will be made.
Despite the improvement, the percentage of women elected to Parliament in the Bahamas is still far below the United Nations minimum quota of 30%.
The only kind of disappointment many of us had is that we had expected more female candidates, but we did have 7 candidates, and they have been successful as well.
Meantime, Jobeth Kobe Davis said she was overjoyed by her victory at the polls.
I was completely overwhelmed by the end results and quite happy and proud.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Jared Higgs.
Well, going into the 2021 general election, analysts thought that the story of the day would be how undecided voters would determine the winner. No one would have imagined that the Bahamas, which has historically high voter turnout, would see those figures drop drastically. Associate Professor of Psychology at the University of the Bahamas, Nyambi Hall Campbell-Dean, says the early numbers were surprising.
Even candidates that you thought might pull through didn't make it. So I think that it was interesting to see how the tides completely turned in the opposite direction from 2017 elections.
Voter turnout figures appeared very low according to the unofficial results of the general election, in contrast to the historically high voter turnout the Bahamas boasts. In the 2017 general election, there were 160,407 votes cast and 181,543 registered voters for a voter turnout of 88%. The 2012 and 2007 elections had voter turnouts around 91 and 92% respectively. Hall Campbell-Dean says there may be a reason for that too, and it may not all be about the fear of COVID.
People just not being interested, or just people just being tired, feeling like their voice or their vote really doesn't matter.
And it showed at poll after poll across the Bahamas. Lines were shockingly short, and voters boasted about being in and out of their polling stations in under 15 minutes. When Our News returns, police investigating a murder in West Grand Bahama, and what's next for the DNA and COI. Stay tuned.
Welcome to our news, and thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight.
COVID-19 remains a serious threat.
Coronavirus COVID-19 has disrupted our economy, tourism industry, educational system, and put our healthcare facilities and professionals on high alert. Are you prepared? Do you have all the facts? Stay tuned to this network for the very latest news and information on this global pandemic.
This is Our News. Welcome back. Police are investigating an election day murder that happened in West Grand Bahama. Assistant Superintendent Stephen Roll says the incident was not politically motivated and occurred after 5 p.m. when a man in his 50s arrived at his 8 Mile Rock home.
The officers responded, and upon their arrival, they received information from a female resident that while viewing her surveillance footage, she would observe her husband, who shortly arrived home and was approached by a lone masked gunman who opened fire, shooting him multiple times about the body. EMS personnel arrived on the scene, assisted and transported the victim to the Ron Memorial Hospital. He was seen and examined by a doctor who pronounced him dead.
In other news, both the Democratic National Alliance and the Coalition of Independents walked away empty-handed last night as none of their candidates secured enough votes to win any seats in Parliament. So what's next for them? Giorgio Bain has that.
DNA headquarters and the party's constituency offices were ghost towns today following the release of the unofficial results, which showed low support for the third party. DNA leader Arinthia Komolafe declined an on-camera interview, but said via telephone, while she feels disappointed with the results, she doesn't feel defeated.
There were several factors that we believe contributed to the results yesterday, and of course low voter turnout is one of them. I think the projections are that the turnout was under 40%, which is really historic.
In several constituencies, political newcomer, the Coalition of Independents, beat out DNA candidates. Komolafe believes votes for the COI did impact the number of votes her candidates received, but says Bahamians fell for the dreams being sold by the COI.
When you were talking about a message and the message that was being sold in the campaign, the DNA versus the COI, it was difficult for the DNA to compete with the selling of dreams of $100,000 a year for every Bahamian, free land, free life, free water, no taxes. Those we felt were not very responsible messages to be putting out there.
Our News also visited the headquarters of the Coalition of Independents. However, when we got there, the office was empty. Attempts to reach party leader Lincoln Bain were also unsuccessful, as his cell phone had been turned off. However, Bain and his candidates did post this video on Facebook last night as the unofficial results were being declared. Bain said he believes the party made a significant impact.
We did not win at the polls, but we transformed the conversation of an entire nation. We have changed the trajectory of an entire nation. We have transformed the thinking and the mindset of the Bahamas.
So what's next for the two parties? Komolafe said there is still not a strong enough opposition in Parliament, therefore it must come from the outside, from parties like the DNA. Reporting for Our News, I'm Georgio Bain.
Cloudy conditions heading into the weekend. That's coming up when Our News returns.
Welcome to Our News and thanks for joining. Topping news tonight.
COVID-19 remains a serious threat.
Coronavirus COVID-19 has disrupted our economy, tourism industry, educational system, and put our healthcare facilities and professionals on high alert. Are you prepared? Do you have all the facts? Stay tuned to this network for the very latest news and information on this global pandemic.
Welcome back to Our News. Forecasters keeping an eye on a tropical wave that may develop into a tropical depression this weekend. Greg has the details in the Weather Center.
Thanks again, Christina, and welcome back everybody for your second look at weather. Very toasty day around the islands as a high pressure system remains in charge across our area. Light winds and toasty temperatures will continue into the weekend. Couple isolated showers. Low pressure system that was east of the island, well to the north, now merging with the frontal boundary, should weaken as it moves into some cooler waters. National Hurricane Center now watching an area that's in the middle Atlantic, expected to approach the northern Leeward Islands and turn towards the northwest and then eventually north, so it should stay to the east of the islands here in the Bahamas, and another one just to the southwest of the Cape Verde Islands. National Hurricane Center giving that a low to medium chance for formation, but that one is expected to stay in the Atlantic over the next couple of days. Boating and beaching forecast for the northwest and central Bahamas tonight through tomorrow. Your winds will be southeast to south at 10 knots, seas running 1 to 3 feet over the ocean, while in the southeast Bahamas and east to southeasterly flow at 50 knots continues, seas running 3 to 5 feet over the ocean. Here's a look now at your national forecast. A look now at your extended forecast through Wednesday. That's a look at our weather. Make it a safe night and have a great weekend, everybody. Back to you, Christina.
Thanks, Greg, and thank you for joining us for Our News tonight. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Christina Dragovich. We'll see you right back here tomorrow night. Have a beautiful evening, Bahamas.